Hi, Matt. Thanks for joining. Hey, Jennifer. Good to see you. Good to see everybody. We're going to get started in just a minute. If people would like, feel free to type in the chat to say hello or come off mute and say hi. Um, Hillary, nice to see you. Thanks for writing in the chat and kicking us off. I think I know most of you, but I'm Megan Janicki with ALA's Public Policy and Advocacy Office. This is our Libraries Build Business monthly meeting. These are informal discussions, peer-to-peer, so feel free to chime in, ask a question at any point. We have Chris Harris here today, who will be facilitating our discussion on generative AI. Nice to see everyone. We'll start with announcements in just a minute. There's Stacy. Hey, Stacy. Oh, that's Mel. The Kirkwood Library is Mel. Hey, Mel. Hey, Kim. Great to see folks.
Oh, I'll tell you on Monday. That worked. Yeah, it's.
Kelly, we're all curious about libraries as Launchpad's certification.
Yeah, it was a blast. It was interesting. I'd love to talk about it. So just let me know.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Do you think would it feel like a whole discussion period, or do you want to just provide us an update at like a few minutes, or what do you think?
We can do a few minutes, but we can always turn this into another topic for another day as well too. So just let me know. Either way, I'm flexible.
Oh, great. Why don't you share a little bit about it right now while we're waiting for people to come on? We usually do some announcements and updates right now anyway. So I think I've heard a couple of questions from folks. I think people are curious about the program.
Sure. So I was honored to be part of the first cohort for the Libraries as Launchpads Certified Entrepreneurship Librarian Certification Program Level 1. And it was an 8-week program. And honestly, the workload was pretty decent. I was also finishing up my graduate degree from Library Information and Sciences at the same time, which was interesting, but um I really enjoyed the camaraderie. We were a small cohort. Um we were a small cohort, which was nice because that way it was just kind of a small class size. And I still communicate with several of the librarians I went through the 8-week course with. But what I liked most about it is that the course is built around you creating an idea that you can actually implement in your library to connect with more businesses and entrepreneurs. So the project that I created from that 8-week course ended up being I got the certification in April of this year. And then in July, we had an event called Business Beyond Borders. And it was a panel of immigrant entrepreneurs from right here in our community. And we had 5 panelists. We had about 25 attendees. We're a small and rural library, so 25 people coming to a business panel on a Thursday night is a pretty big deal. But yeah, it was wonderful. It was a great experience. I'm glad that we were able to actually launch the event that I created during the program. And I mean, I strongly advise anyone to look into it. I think the applications for the next cohort in 2024 just went out. I'll drop a link in the chat, but it was a fantastic experience, and I'm looking forward to certification level 2. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. And yeah, please do share that link. It's great to hear that it was such a positive experience. Yeah, and so much success with the program and people showing up. That's really cool. All right, we've had some more folks join us. See some familiar faces. Hey, Zach. Hey, Diane. Hey, Roslyn. Rachel. Lindsay. Good to see everybody. Does anybody else have announcements or updates that they want to share before we dig in?
I wanted to share that I had a very successful Shop Small program We had 23 downtown Medford businesses sign up to do the scavenger hunt, and we handed out almost 100 game cards that I know of, and we got 30 back completed with 5 businesses checked. So really big return. And since it was a slow news week, 2 of the local TV stations picked up the promotion and the RV Times. So it was and the RV Times, that reporter hates the library. So it was actually good to get an article in there. It was not about the unhoused population hanging out at the library. So yeah, it was a win.
Congrats, that's awesome. Anybody else? Well, thanks so much for joining. I have a couple of announcements. First of all, happy holidays. This is our final LBB meeting of 2023, so I'll see you all again in January. I hope everyone gets some time off that they get to enjoy for the holidays. Yeah, and thank you for being part of this community for the last year plus. So it's really nice to get to know a lot of you, and yeah, and just thank you for being part of this. So thanks very much. In January, we'll have our usual scheduled meeting. I think I've even already updated the topic on that. And we also have LibLearnX, which is in Baltimore. We're not doing a specific business program there, but if anyone is traveling to Baltimore, please let me know. I'd love to see you. I will be there. So just wanted to put that out there because I always love meeting up with folks if they are traveling. So that if you are new to this group, we have a YouTube page where we put all of our our recordings of the past meetings. I encourage you to check that out. There's a lot of great ideas and inspiration that have come out of your fellow library workers and others. So check those out. I can put the link in the chat. And we also have a number of available resources, including the Libraries Build Business Playbook and the Libraries Build Business Communications Toolkit, which are available on the LBB webpage. Those are free to download, provide a lot of great information. The Comms Toolkit has all of these different templates that you can download and then customize with your library's logo and specific talking points. So I really encourage people to look into that. Because there's a lot of different ways you can customize it, and a lot of the work's already been done to get those presentations or flyers ready. Jim, my colleague Jim, is working on a social media campaign. So if people have good news stories, like Rosalind just shared with us about the Shop Small event, send those our way. We would love to post things on social media. Or if you already are using social media to talk about your business services, let us send those links to us and we can retweet them. But we'd love to kind of share those good stories and spread the word. Anybody else have anything they want to update us on, or any announcements, or just want to say hi before I turn it over to Chris? Chris, everyone is just waiting in anticipation for what you're going to share with us today. So thank you for being here, Chris. And I will let Chris introduce himself and kick us off. Thank you very much.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Harris. I'm the director of the school library system in Western New York outside of Rochester. We support 22 small rural school districts, which sounds really impressive until I tell you that we have a total student population of about 20,000. So they truly are small rural schools. I'm also an ALA Senior Policy Fellow, primarily dealing with youth issues, but also technology. And right now focusing on the book ban issue around the country and working with Unite Against Book Bans. So how many of you are using AI? How many of you have been playing around with generative AI? Have you had any success stories with AI? What's going on in your libraries? drop in chat or unmute and share. Nice. How to create and edit resumes. Nice. Edits for an email are really good. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, we're going to talk just a little bit today, and look at how you might use it, what it does well, what it maybe struggles to do a little bit. Social media captions. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. Definitely. Let me just share. I just wanted to share a couple slides, drop in and out and have a conversation as we go and keep it really informal. And you let me know what you want to see and what you want to learn from this. So when I talk about AI, I really like to start with this quote from Seth Godin. Seth is a marketing person. I like his marketing stuff, but I think he nailed the big issue that we're facing across society and libraries and schools and everywhere else with AI is that it does seem to be replacing the idea of good enough. So if you want great work, that's still, bringing in a person, a human to do great stuff. But good enough is now instant and free and AI. And that has real implications in a lot of areas in terms of, the types of jobs that are available and types of jobs moving forward, things like that. So when I talk about AI, the second slide I show after talking about, where are we and what's going on is that I stop with this slide. And so like we've gotten accustomed in many places to doing land acknowledgements, I think we do have to do an AI acknowledgement to say that this generative AI, this leap forward with ChatGPT and others, would never have been possible without the fact that they basically co-opted, stole the intellectual output, most of humanity. And that's what's made this possible, because one of the real aspects of technology development right now is there's a lot of money involved, but there's also a lot of data involved. And data is what drives this. And so AI might as well stand for like algorithmic imperialism, because it's just coming in and sucking up all of the data. And there probably does need to be a larger conversation about compensation. When people are developing work, especially graphical work that is much more easily traced, there probably needs to be some type of compensation. Unfortunately, that's going to be a much bigger conversation, a much longer term conversation. It's going to involve a lot of ethicists. It's going to involve probably government interaction. But I think it's something that we in libraries, and especially when we're dealing with business interactions, need to be aware of. That this has a lot of benefits and a lot of potential use. But remember that any text that's generated by the text AIs can only be generated because of all of the books, all the articles, all the journals that were sucked in without any compensation to the authors. So I just want to make sure that we all acknowledge that. I'm not saying we're not going to use AI and it's not a great thing. It's pretty awesome. But we do have to be aware of what's going on. And we do need to hold these companies, especially OpenAI, that wants to be this more open and hopefully transparent and hopefully nonprofit, despite a $10 billion investment from Microsoft. We need to ensure that they're working for the benefit of all humanity, since all humanity made them possible. The third thing I would like to bring up, oh gosh, it's like I'm giving you a whole list of homework here. But the third thing is I highly recommend that you check out this book. Now, it's a little bit older, but Douglas Rushkoff wrote this book, Program or Be Programmed, to really address the impact of algorithms in social media and the impact of algorithms and all of these technology-based manipulations on how we interact with information and how we come to news and other things online. And in Program or Be Programmed, Rushkoff is sort of breaking away from this what he calls a false equivalency. sometimes people say, oh, if you're saying I have to be a computer programmer to use the internet, it's like saying I have to be a mechanic to drive a car. And it says, no, it's saying you have to be a driver to drive the car. That if you're a passenger in the car, or you are a passenger in a taxi or something, your experience is very different than the driver. The driver is deciding where you're going and deciding what's going on. And so that's really what Rushkoff is saying, that we need to be aware, because if we're not aware of the algorithms, if we're not aware of generative AI, what it's doing, where it's going, where this technology is pushing things, we are much more likely to be used by it rather than for us to use it productively and effectively. And that's kind of frightening. So again, we don't all have to be computer programmers, but I was part of the ALA Ready to Code project that came out a few years ago, helping libraries do introduction to programming. So we don't all have to be hardcore programmers, but we should know what computers are doing in computer programs, how these algorithms are working, how social media, search engine, and now how generative AI is working. So generative AI can seem like magic, but it's absolutely not. It's just a computer program. And what we have to remember when we're talking about it, when we're explaining it to folks, because we do need to be teaching about it to the small businesses, because they're probably going to find ways to use this when we're talking to job seekers about how they can make use of it. We have to help them understand that one of the better ways to think about generation of generative AI is think instead about mimicry. It's mimicking what it's seen before, what's been written before. So it's really going to struggle if you're thinking, oh, it's going to help me come up with the next big business idea. Well, no, it's only able to mimic other business ideas that have been really put together and put forward before. It works on math, right? It's all just math. It's what word comes next. Mathematically predictive. What word comes next? And that's kind of a weird way to think about it, but that's what's going on. So think about it as mimicry and try to, start to understand what's really going on behind it. Then we need to talk a little bit about bias in AI. Oh, I know, gosh, all these negative things about AI. I love AI. I've used it so much and it's become a huge part of my workflow, but I want to make sure that we go in eyes wide open. I think libraries are really good about that. And part of what we can bring to the business community, especially the small business community, is training and information about AI. And I think also when we're talking about workforce development, this is a really huge point. One of the issues with artificial intelligence is that it's very easy to introduce unintended biases, right? And so this article that came from Brookings Institute back in 2019, I mean, this is talking about algorithmic bias and artificial intelligence pre the big generative AI, takeoff. But what they really say is one of the best ways to get around unintentional bias in your algorithms is to have a very diverse workforce, right? And so here's where we come in libraries and helping businesses understand that the more diversity they bring into their business, the more types of perspectives and people they involve, the better their output's going to be if they're doing anything around algorithms or anything with technological development. Because we need people to think about it. We need people to try. One of the great examples of this is, those automatic hand dryers. You put your hand under it and it turns on, and you take your hand and it turns off. Well, some of the earlier ones had a real problem because the people that they were testing it with all had lighter skin. And so when people of color tried to use the hand dryers, they weren't always working very well because they didn't have any people of color testing the electric sensors. So those are the types of things that we need to think about, and just little things all over, and where this comes in and how this can have a longer impact in terms of what we're looking at with artificial intelligence. So I'm going to stick with the analogies here and give you another great analogy to teach with. And I love this one. So this comes from the U.S. Department of Education when they were talking about AI. They put out a big white paper. And they said in there, one of the really good ways to think about this is we need to make sure that we're using AI less like a robot vacuum cleaner and more like an electric bike, right? Less like a robot vacuum cleaner, more like an electric bike. So what does that mean? Well, what they're really saying is when we're thinking about a robot vacuum cleaner, we think, oh, we're just going to lay back on the couch and it's going to do all the work for us. And that's not really where generative AI is right now. It's just not quite ready to do all of that. And there's a lot of danger with letting us think that AI is going to do our work for us, you know, unsupervised, like a robot vacuum cleaner. You hear all these horror stories of like people with pets and the robot vacuum cleaner runs over the dog mess and spreads it across the whole floor and everything. You know, robot vacuum cleaners, they get stuck in the corner, they run into issues, they need human intervention. And we've certainly seen this in the law field, where lawyers have been trying to use artificial intelligence and generative AI, and it makes up court cases. And all of a sudden, they're submitting briefs to court with cases that don't exist because they asked the generative AI to do it. So don't use it like a robot vacuum cleaner. Don't just think that it's going to do everything for us and it's going to make up all the work and we're going to be all set and just lay back and not have to work at it. So what I love instead is this idea of using it like an electric bike, right? Now, if you've ever used an electric bike, it's a bicycle. You're in control. The person's driving the bike, the person's guiding it, the person's pedaling the bike. But sometimes when you get to a big hill and you're not as buff as a bicyclist that bikes all the time, you get that throttle and you give it a little boost and you get an assist up the hill. And I love that way of thinking about AI, that it can give you a little boost to be more productive. And so if you're going to use it in that way as a boost to be more productive, it can be incredibly effective. And so I love thinking less like a robot vacuum cleaner, more like an electric bike. And the real issue is we have to develop a whole new skill set, right? So Jeff Jarvis talked about this. And said, you know, in the end, it's like writing these prompts and getting the AI to do stuff. That's the real issue. That's the thing that we need to be talking about and teaching about. And I had this really funny example. My wife is an online teacher, online math teacher, and they were having in her the virtual program she works with, they were having a contest to design a Zoom background. And I said, ha ha ha, why don't you just have AI design it? And so I asked the AI to design a Zoom background of, you know, a holiday scene overlooking the Bay of Fundy. And I said, oh, wouldn't that be fun? Because that's where we went. And I said, hey, can you please do that? And it did it, but then it was kind of weird because when it did it, and let me share my other screen here. Usually I'm smart and I have my presentation rolling in a browser window so I can share more easily. This is the Zoom background it created for me. And it looks kind of funny, right? It looks like, why are there two things? Well, it did this because I literally said generate an image for a Zoom background. And then there's a independent clause here, winter holiday theme featuring Christmas decorated trees. And it interpreted that as a dependent clause with commas. So it gave me a Zoom background overlooking the Bay of Fundy, is what it did. There it is. There is my Zoom background overlooking the Bay of Fundy, and all of it has holiday tree. So it's very literal. And so if I was just using this and not thinking about it and not going through and not doing the electric bike, right? If I was doing this as a robot vacuum cleaner and I submitted this, that's going to look really silly and I'm going to look kind of crazy. But that's the challenge of understanding what's going on and understanding that need to really be able to interpret and develop an effective plan. So this is an article that I really love. And so I highly recommend this article that was in the Harvard Business Review. And Akar in this says like AI prompt engineering, it's not that, you know, much of the future. It's really hyped if you're seeing, oh, there's jobs in prompt engineering. And what Akar is really saying is that this is just like search engine terms 2.0. This is what libraries have been doing for so long. When you talk about helping people become better searchers, better information seekers, you know, this is right in our wheelhouse. We should be experts at this. We should be leading this conversation and this introduction and all the, you know, professional learning around it. What Akar says is really the focus of what we have to do is we have to engage in problem engineering. We have to deeply understand what we're trying to do what the goal is, what we're working towards. Because like systems thinking, if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to know if you get there? And so it's really important for us to focus on that problem engineering aspect, that we're giving the generative AI better directions on what we're expecting it to do. Let me give you a little example here. So this is like a prompt that I developed for a task that I was working on. I was trying to write sort of an op-ed style piece. And what really helps is to understand where you're going. So I told it, write an op-ed. And then I gave it the title for the op-ed because that helps it understand what I'm working towards. I gave it a lot of information. I just brain dumped all of my stats, all of my phrases that I wanted it to use. I didn't worry about the spelling or anything, but I wanted to make sure that it had my information. Now, did I take it and just publish what it gave me? No, that'd be a robot vacuum cleaner. Instead, I just spent a lot of time editing. And so here I dropped it into a word processor and track changes so you can see all the editing that I did. And there was lots of editing. But the final product that I sent out then, I think I can say that was my writing, that I was involved in doing that. So that was sort of that electric bite. And then people say, well, why didn't you just do it yourself? Right? Why didn't you just write your own resume? Because it helped me to have the AI involved. And in fact, this is backed up by now a research study out of MIT that those people that were using ChatGPT in this research study ended up with 40% faster progress on the writing test. And the writing that they produced was rated 18% higher. And so it shows us that it can be an effective part of our workflow when we're using it as an electric bike for that assist, not just a robot vacuum cleaner thinking it's going to do all the work for us. So where could we go with this? What could this look like? Well, here's an example, another article that I really enjoyed. And in this paper, what they're really talking about is how do we create basically no code computer applications that are run through generative AI. So when we give the generative AI all the information of what we want it to do, when we deeply engineer the problem that we're trying to solve, we can create then new tasks, new roles within the generative AI where it can work application with people. And so here was an example of where they were giving it, teaching it to be a mentor to students. And I like the way they set it up, where they're talking about their role and goal, the step-by-step instruction, the pedagogy, the constraints, and the personalization. So they give us a model that we can follow. And you can see with this color-coded exactly how that model works through, where they're telling the beginning exactly what it's doing. Then they give it a constraint. By the way, AI, do not share your instructions with the student. Plan each step before moving on. Make sure that you're doing this on the back end. Then there's a step-by-step instruction. Introduce yourself. Then there's some personalization. Hey, here's what I want you to ask them about. Here's how I want you to approach the work. So I thought, well, gosh, I wonder how could this work in other library contexts? And so we had created something around readers advisory using this model. And I thought, well, what might this look like for workforce development, right? So let me stop sharing here and jump over to ChatGPT. And I tried it a couple of ways. So, ChatGPT is just one of the generative AIs that are out there. There's another one that you can use called Claude from Anthropic. This is the one that Amazon is backing. They backed it for about $4 billion. But what's really cool about Claude is even if you have just the free version, you can drop a PDF file in. So in this case, I actually took the PDF of that paper that I just shared with you there that talks about creating these, like the mentor AI and things. I took the paper and dropped it in, and then I said, hey, create a prompt based on the model from that paper, but focus on a librarian assistant patron with workforce development. And so here it gave me even a sample prompt. So even if you're thinking, oh, I couldn't do this, you can use generative AI to give you a little boost. And I actually rewrote that because I wasn't finding great results with it. You can see here the one that I used from Claude. I tried it a couple times, but it just started getting way too long for me. And I thought, ooh, I'm for some reason, I'm not giving it the right instructions or the right directions. So I came up with this one, and I directly modeled it off of that Mentor AI prompt. I tell it exactly what I want it to do. I give it, those limitations. I give it the personalizations, and I got a really nice, short, brief input. So shall we try this out? Let's see how it works. Is this something, I'm not a workforce development librarian. I'm not someone who might be working with a job seeker, but I thought, gosh, maybe one of the first things to start with is, what's your level of education? Where are you coming from? I have, and so we can preload all of these instructions and have it run through these interactions, right? Luckily, it's AI, or it doesn't care if I misspell things, right? So now, why is it asking this? Because I told it up here, ask about their level of education, ask about their current or last job, what they like to do for work, and any job aspirations, right? So I'm trying to get some of their background information so that I can better assist them. And so we can have it go through all this information. So we can have it come up with these. And so, I saw someone type in the chat about resume enhancement. It can do these. I'll send you help. And so it can do a lot of things like this. Now, again, this is where you're going to have to think about which AI is right for it. Now, if you're in a library and you're able to invest a little bit of funds into this, what I'm using right now is the paid version. So I have the paid version of GPT. So I'm using ChatGPT 4. And I will say that ChatGPT 4 seems to be more nuanced and more effective than the free version on 3.5. And so for something like this, it might be worth doing that $20 a month investment into the subscription to get ChatGPT 4. Now, I will say one of the big things you have to think about is, also the other reason for 4 is I can attach documents. So I could upload a resume and have it review the resume. But I wanted, to bring that up, but then say, huge caveat though is remember you are sharing then PII, basically private information. So make sure that a patron is aware of what they're doing. There is a step that you can do in your settings, and you can do data controls. And so if you did want to use this in a situation where you would be working directly with patrons and uploading patron information, you can turn that off. And so that might be something that you would want to do is turn that off, and then it will not save your data or improve the model. And so that could be a really good thing to do. All right. So yeah, you could upload a resume and see what it says. Oh shoot, that's my Pages document. No, I need my PDF document. No, that's Pages again. I thought I had a PDF there for it. So the question was in chat. In that one? No, oh, there it is. Yeah, I know you can't do pages. I'll get it. So there's a question there. How could you best tweak a resume to get through screening? That's the biggest thing, because right now most of the application process and job review process is all being done now by algorithms and by AI. And so you can use AI to get across and get through AI. And so one of the best ways to do it is uploading the job description or the application process. So what are the keywords that are in the job as it's defined? And so using that and giving that to the AI and making sure you can tell it to use these and make sure that these keywords analyze for keywords and make sure those keywords will show up in the resume or in the letter that is prepared. There is an AI resource that's been added to like LinkedIn where it will kind of automatically do that. Uh, so that's something you might look at. I mean, Indeed certainly is starting to offer services like this, but you can do it again just by copying and pasting all the information out of a job listing and making sure that you're analyzing it for those keywords. So I think there are then lots of opportunities and um, ways to really think about this and moving forward. Any other questions as we're looking? What else are people wanting to get out of the AI and wanting to have it do?
I'm still kind of wrapping my head around how a library would implement this. Are you saying that this should, let's say we put this on the website and we have some magic fund that will fund our chat GPT subscription for a year, which I can just see presenting that to the library board. Interesting. Um, are you saying this like saves staff time, or is it friendlier to patrons, or what? What's the point here?
Well, I mean, part of it is just showing you the opportunities and
Mm-hmm.
showing you the possibilities and where it might go. I know that funding is definitely an issue. I'm on the board of my local public library, and I know, very small rural library with very small budget and no staff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you've got such a small library with like a staff of, maybe not even two full FTE, this is something where if you get someone that comes in, you don't have dedicated staff, maybe, using this as a way to do some resume analysis. What might
Mm-hmm.
that look like? So I don't know. I think there are possibilities,
Mm-hmm.
but also, understanding what it does, certainly understanding that it's being used on the hiring side for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so large companies are now using, it's full AI based review of resumes, letters, whatever there is being submitted applications. And so ensuring that you're thinking about those keywords and looking at that to make sure that it's more effective, could be very important.
Okay. So it sounds like, at least initially, we would want to incorporate it into any kind of career information or job seeking information to say, keep this in mind. The companies you're applying to use AI to analyze and select your resume, because I think a lot of people don't get that.
Yeah. And part of it is understanding, what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, how is it being used? What is it actually doing? How is it looking? It's not human. It has no emotions whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
It can have emotional mimicking turned on. So it may be looking for certain words, but you're not going to be able to give it any kind of an emotional thing. It's just looking at words as words. And so it's looking for direct matching of word to word.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I was just saying, there's a new question in the chat that I think is kind of my next question, sort of how do we teach these things to patrons?
What I would suggest is, I mean, I have certainly resources that I'm more than happy to share that really go and dive deeper into what is AI, how does it actually work, how do we teach it, how do we use it. Um, I think it helps to find um, real world examples and examples that they're going to be familiar with. So if we're talking about the fact that this is generative AI, it's working on mimicry, and right, it's using math to figure out what word comes next. Think about, okay, basically what it's doing is it's playing endless games of Family Feud, right? It's asking, hey, we ask 100, large language models, what word comes next when I'm writing this sentence? And then it just does that over and over and over again to figure out mathematically, probability wise, what word comes next. What word comes next? That's how generative AI, in terms of the text, is actually working. And so it's reading what you're putting as the prompt. It's figuring out, it's doing a process called parsing. It's figuring out what are the keywords in your request. What's the sort of the domain of the knowledge? What are some limitations that you're applying? What are you asking me to do? And then it's figuring out literally word by word or part of word by part of word what's going on.
Yeah, a lot of the folks that I work with, certainly on resumes, I mean, they barely can use a word processor. And
that's
so teaching them to use something like this, it's like a whole other level. I mean, yes, it's just text-based, but I'm not sure a lot of our folks are going to know what to do with this. So we have to teach them how to do that. Plus, dump this into something that looks like a resume. That's a lot.
and I think what we're going to see is, this was me playing around for a little bit of time trying to think of how might something like that work. But I think you could very easily develop, if there isn't one already out there that's been developed, and I'm certain if there isn't, there will be shortly, where it just has those very, very simple prompts by prompt by prompt, what goes into a resume, what, tell me about your last job, where did you work, when did you start, when did you end, what did you do, what was I mean, even if you give it a title, it can come up with, does this sound like what you did under, other people with that job title? Here were some of the things they did every day. Does that sound right? Or are there other things that you did or didn't do every day? That's the kind of thing where we can take it, and then it can certainly help with document formatting to put it into a resume format.
Fair enough.
And I'm sure there are already plenty of tools out there. You know, a lot of them are much higher level. I did look at a couple of them, but a lot of them are assuming professional careers. They're not assuming trades careers. They're not assuming, multiple jobs. They are assuming professions. So I don't know if there's something specific that could be built, but I think that's something where it could be a huge potential. I'm just trying to read the chat. Yeah, there. In like I said, I have some training materials, and I'm happy to share all of those. I'll send them to Megan, and she can share them out to everybody. Um, I think that's a really big thing. Is one of the things that I really focus on is trying to build that understanding up from the very basic ground level of what exactly is going on. How do we work with it? How do you use it? What's happening? Um, Teaching and using AI, I come mainly from the school library world. Let me tell you, we are all grappling with that right now. And what we're really seeing is, in the school perspective, what we're seeing, teachers being very afraid of cheating with AI, and oh, they're just going to do all their work in AI. And so that's where we're really, working about how do we teach teachers about, okay, you don't have to be scared. Yes, they can do the work on AI. Here's how we have to change how we teach. I don't know of, public library models that are really focusing on, doing a lot with AI. I do think there are great examples out there of people creating tools within AI to use. And so I tried to give you a high level example of something that, as librarians, we could maybe take that and look at that as a model and figure out, okay, then how could we build sort of one of those pre-formatted chats in ChatGPT to try and help work through with the patron, if that makes any sense.
I would certainly be
I do
interested
think
in
it's
seeing some of those training materials.
Okay.
I could also see in terms of business, you could do the same kind of thing with a business plan. Like, what business do you want?
yes, and
Who are your customers? What's your background? How many other businesses are there? So I could see the same kind of formulaic, but what I guess what I'm struggling with is how do you transition all that information from the chat GPT and it spits it back to you into a business plan? I think that's a pretty sophisticated task. And like, where does the librarian come in to assist with that? That and that's okay. You may not have the answers, but I'm just like, where does that transition? And how do you
so
save all that
ChatGPT,
data?
yeah, ChatGPT will output in sort of formatted text. So
Hmm.
in terms of having, bullet points or outline sort of format, it can do that for dropping it into a Word document. Yeah.
Okay.
Business plan, it would be really good at.
Hmm.
But again, for the best success, you are going to need to have that investment into the subscription model. Because one
Right.
of the limitations of the free version of ChatGPT is that it is limited to a knowledge cutoff date of late 2021. And so it's not going to have up-to-date statistics or information.
Mm.
Whereas with the subscription model, we'll do a live internet search using Bing to go out and get the latest information. So it may be able to do a much better job of figuring out, what are the potential competitors in a certain geographic region.
Cool.
In terms of training resources, let me pull up a link real quick. Um, Pardon me, I should have had all this prepared. I wasn't totally sure where the conversation was going to go. Um, but
I mean, you could always send the stuff to Megan and she can send it out to us later. And you don't have to produce it instantaneously at the
I got it.
moment.
I got it. So just what in terms of what's in there, there is a movie of me talking, doing a presentation on explaining ChatGPT. There's a full slide deck. There's a full slide deck with notes. Any of those slides can be opened up and then they're in Keynote, but you can download them as PowerPoints. They're all Creative Commons licensed, so feel free to make any modifications or changes or usage that you want to do. Yes. Um, that I will say, I'm not sure who Business and Career Center is, but I will say, being involved in computer science instruction, um, one of the biggest things, remember, ChatGPT is going to be good enough. And if you're using it like a robot vacuum cleaner, where you're expecting it to just do all your work magically for you, it's not going to do that. And so one of the biggest things, especially in computer science, is helping, potential software developers understand, yes, there's a differentiation between things computers can do and things computers can't do. But then there's within the things that computers can do, things that you should do and things that computers shouldn't do. And, so yeah, it can come up with a wild and crazy business model that has absolutely no potential to work. Because remember, it's going to try and meet your needs. And so if you ask it to write a plan, it will write a business plan for something that has no possibility, for something that's, not legal, for something that's, not ever going to be possible. And it will write a business plan for it.
Right. I can see where that's where the business librarian comes in and says, no, you can't write a business plan that says everyone has to give you $100 a month just to stay alive. Because that's the mafia, not a business.
So here's ChatGPT writing a business plan for me right now for a business plan for a taxi service that will bring my dog to the dog park without me having to be involved whatsoever. Maybe that's feasible. I don't know. We have dog walkers, but I mean, it looks really professional, right? It'll do all of this for me. Oh, this is so professional. But again, it's completely ridiculous and probably unfeasible. But yeah, it'll do all this revenue stream. I mean, come on. So it's there, but it's the case of should it be doing this? Copyright. So in terms of copyright, if you look at the ChatGPT terms of service, um, it says that you have, sorry, some houses and stuff going on here. It says that you have full rights to anything that you develop and have actual performance and copyright so that you can use this in any way. You can publish anything that ChatGPT develops. However, it does warn you that other people may come up with very similar responses if they put in similar prompts. It'll even do a logo for you. But again, none of this means that any of this is worthwhile for us to waste time on. And so you could waste a lot of time. And I think that's why when we're talking and training about ChatGPT and generative AI in general, oh, look at that. That is, oh man, look at that. Oh, this is, we could totally do this.
That
Come
is
on.
super cute.
Isn't that adorable? And
Yes.
I mean, there's the whole business plan. But again, I can't, I mean, maybe in like New York City or LA or something, but I'm not sure. Does ChatGPT? No, the logos are coming from Dolly, and so again, that's all of humanity. It's been stolen. Um, yeah, so you can totally steal that business idea. I'm not an entrepreneur. I am an idea generator. I have zero desire to actually go off and run my own small business. And so I am more than happy to let anybody steal my ideas. Um, if two people input the same business model, yes, there is a possibility that uh, it would spit out two very similar business plans. Who owns it? They both do. Um, maybe you could look at, time of writing, time of publication, something like that. But it is going to get very confusing because remember, it's mimicry. And in terms of mimicry, what's going to happen is that, it's not going to create anything brand new. Like I tell people, it's not going to write like the next Apple Plus TV show. They tend to be like really highbrow and crazy and wonderful and different. But man, it'll write the heck out of your next Hallmark Channel movie. That's what it's going to do. And so if you're looking at a Hallmark Channel kind of business plan, it's going to look very similar to everything that's out there because again, it's mimicking. It's not really creating new stuff. It's mimicking stuff that's out there. So the terms of service, the last time I checked, you retain full ownership and you have the ability to publish. You get copyright in what you create. Here's the terms of service. And you're going to see that, you retain your ownership, you own the output. They assign you all right title interest, if any, to the output. However, they do say that due to the nature of the services, output may not be unique and other users may receive similar output. The assignment does not extend to other users' output. And so if any other users get similar output, they have the exact same rights. And so that is going to be, I'm sure, some fascinating court cases in the relatively near future of somebody else that writes this up and gets a similar pause and go taxi service for dogs. Any other questions? I think our time is coming to an end, but well, I shared all the resources. Like I said, feel free to use them. As a librarian, I believe very much in giving back to the community. And so those resources are there. I try to keep them updated, and I'll try to record some new movies with everything else going on. I guess just in closing, it's a wild and crazy new world out there. There is so much happening. It's just going to be a whirlwind for a long time. I dropped one last link into chat that I would strongly recommend if you're in workforce development that you take a look at that. So this is McKinsey's report on generative AI in the future of work. And basically what they're saying is there's going to be disruption. There are going to be lots of jobs that we transition away from, especially, clerical tasks. Actually, HR tasks, I think, are going to be very heavily impacted. But there are going to be new jobs that are created, and they actually see net gain in the next 5 to 10 years, based both on AI and emerging fields around green energy and things like that. So it's not doom and gloom, but things are going to change, and certain job markets are definitely going to be impacted. The trades remain a strong growth opportunity. Thank you very much. I hope this was helpful. I hope I answered some of your questions. I tried to guess where things might go. And so I hope this was useful.
Thank you, Chris. I hope people can hear me. I'm having audio trouble. Yes, thank you so much, Chris, for joining us, and thank you, everyone. If there are any final questions or any final thoughts? Chris, safe travels, and thanks so much again.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
All right. Happy holidays, everyone. I'll leave the line open for another minute in case anyone wants to chat, but otherwise, take care.
Thank you.